Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shali Katana, and I'm the Director of Member Experience and Programs here at MSBA. We are happy to welcome all of you to our lunchtime coffee talk, the first lunchtime of its series. We have enjoyed having these informal gatherings with the different sections for the past few weeks now as an additional way to stay connected, to hear about updates from your section chair, from each other, to hear about what the MSBA has been up to. And I know we have a few of the MSBA directors on the call. If you all could just let me know if you're on, then we can go ahead and get started. I see Andrea, Terry, and Lisa. Angela, do we have anyone else on? If not, we'll go ahead and get started. And Angela, just let me know if anyone else joins. Okay?
Sounds good.
And I do see people are posting in the chat, so thank you for that. Feel free to continue to do that, and we will pick up on your questions in just a couple of minutes when I turn it over to the section chair. So first, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what the MSBA has been doing the last few months now since the COVID crisis began. We've been thankful to have thousands of attorneys that have joined us through our webinars, through our town halls, and through our virtual meetings. We have worked closely with a lot of Maryland leaders, such as the Maryland and federal judiciary, with the governor's office, and particularly with the governor's office of legal counsel. And we've shared concerns on behalf of our members, and we've obtained clarification and at times have obtained orders directly in response to those requests. We continue to hold calls with leaders of the largest law firms in the area to talk about strategies to weather through the crisis. We've also been working closely as a member of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. They now have a COVID work group. So we've been part of that group to talk about the economic impact of the crisis on the profession. We've gone through the different loan programs, and we've been trying to share that information as quickly as we can, but it is ever changing. So we continue that weekly discussion. We were successful in working with some of our sections to obtain remote notarization and remote witnessing, and to obtain clarification from the governor's office on some of their interpretive guidance. And we're also, our Director of Legislative Affairs, Richard Montgomery, has been working with the sections. Although we now have a postponed special session of the General Assembly, he's been working closely with them on thinking through what the next steps are. We also have a dedicated COVID website that has a lot of good information regarding courts, regarding resources for businesses and practitioners, as well as wellness resources and access to justice updates. I'd like to turn over now to Andrea Terry, the Director of Learning, to give us an update on our webinars and CLEs. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Shali. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Shali mentioned, we have had thousands of attorneys, both members and non-members, join us for the 20 or so COVID-related webinars that we've hosted since late March. And I think we're over 14,000 participants now when you count those who participated in the live presentations and those who have since viewed the on-demand. And those programs are all available on the COVID website that Shali referenced in her opening remarks. So we've had about a dozen sections participate in offering the COVID-related programming. And if any of you have identified areas of your practice that have been impacted and we haven't covered those particular topics in any of our webinars, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to discuss scheduling a webinar. If you guys provide the content, we provide all of the logistical support, technical support during and prior to your presentation. We have practice runs so that you're completely comfortable with the platform. Everybody's safely at home in their home offices as they're presenting. And we run the presentation. Our videographer, Bill Hall, handles all the technical aspects of delivering the content. So I would welcome you to reach out to me if you haven't already for scheduling a webinar. And also I wanted to let you know that if you haven't seen it already, the MSBA is offering all of its on-demand CLE for free through the end of June, through June 30th. All of our on-demand catalog, it's 150 plus, in addition to the 20 or so COVID-related webinars that are free. Those are available to you for free with a coupon code that went out just maybe an hour ago in our Learn From Home weekly email. It's on our website and in our blog postings. So please take advantage of that. That's open and available through the end of June 30th. And I'll field questions while I'm here on the line. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Shally. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. We also have been increasing our communications to all of you. Instead of having once a week email, we've increased that now to Tuesdays and Fridays the weekly roundup, where we bring you the latest news from the courts and updates on COVID. We have decided to publish the upcoming Bar Journal digitally just due to health concerns about mail handling. And so be on the lookout for that. We'll be sending that out soon. The April bulletin is already up, and we'll continue to post those monthly. Our publications department is still very busy. We have some new titles coming up on ESI and judgment avoidance, and we also have regular publications for sale, both digitally and printed copies that can be sent to you. So we encourage you to look for those online. I'd like to give an update as well on our Legal Summit and annual meeting. We were really excited going forward this year. Prior to the COVID situation, we had more registrations than we had last year at this time, and we were expected to exceed the number of attendees this year. But we made a decision based on what we were seeing from the governor and public health officials to cancel this year's meeting. We have communicated that to anyone who was registered, but we are working on packaging a lot of that content into a digital format that will be available to you this summer. And we're also planning on putting together a Legal Excellence Week this fall, which would incorporate some of those programs as well as some of our standard fall programs that would include our Solo and Small Summit, some of our Advanced Learning Institutes, the Conference of Bar Presidents, and some social connections events as well. And if you have any ideas for that programming or how to repurpose any of the content or presentations that were planned for the annual summit, for the annual meeting, please do get in touch with us because we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'll turn now to Lisa Kaplan, the director of our Lawyer Assistance Program, for an update on her resources. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's a beautiful day out today. I'm going to give you some resources that we have on the COVID health and wellness page. There are a lot of different resources, from yoga to workouts that you can do from home. We've tried to keep things short so that they're easy to look at, access. It's not a lot of reading. There are some tip sheets on there. There's online classes. There are emergency resources. It's a great resource, and there's a lot of information on there to help you manage the emotional side of this. Also, I've been doing a support group on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We had a great group. It's small, it's a discussion group, but it's been really good. We were talking about resilience. We talked about some non-traditional stress management techniques. Next week, we're going to talk about some more stress management techniques. So if you're interested in that, please join me. Also, the Lawyer Assistance Program is always available to help. It is free, it's confidential, it can help with any type of personal issues. It's a great resource, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're looking for a counselor or looking for resources, I can help you with that. We have a network of counselors throughout the state, so when we can get up and move again, you can meet with somebody close to where you live. It's also available to all lawyers in Maryland. If you're ever concerned about an attorney, you can also reach out to me. If you see a change in their behavior, you're concerned, you're not going to get them in trouble. It does not go to attorney grievance, but you may end up saving somebody's life. So if you are concerned, reach out to me. You will stay completely anonymous, and we'll make sure that that person is safe. We have financial assistance that can help with counseling if you are for mental health counseling or for substance abuse treatment. So if you've been in counseling on a weekly basis and financially it's become difficult for you, it's something we can help you with. We can help with seeing a psychiatrist, with inpatient mental health or substance abuse treatment. So if you have any questions, concerns, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I'd like to just acknowledge, I think Richard Montgomery just joined us. Richard, I did walk through some of our advocacy efforts. Could you just say hello to the group?
Good morning, everyone. Well, actually, afternoon, everyone.
And Richard, if you have any updates, feel free. But I did go through our COVID work group with the chamber and some of our efforts with the governor's office.
Well, I was just on a call with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce COVID-19 work group, and we were talking about the prospects for the possibility of a special session. And one of the things that came up in discussions was the fact that the governor, I think today or tomorrow is the last day for vetoes of bills that were passed during the General Assembly session. And to the extent that the governor vetoes anything that's budgetary in nature, the special session to override that would have to be before July 1st, if in fact that happens. So in case he were to veto something related to the Kerwin education measure, that has a huge budgetary component to it. So a special session to attempt to override that type of bill would have to happen before July 1st. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Thank you, Richard. We also have been working closely with our Access to Justice Commission partner, and they have also created a dedicated COVID-19 website that's for civil legal aid organizations, as well as the public, to inform them about some of the issues that are changing, it seems, almost daily in terms of how to approach them, including immigration issues, domestic violence, and landlord-tenant. They've also focused their efforts on connecting directly with civil legal aid organizations every week, working on this public information campaign, as I mentioned, thinking through funding shortfalls for the upcoming year and strategies to obtain more funding. And they're also focusing on collecting volunteer attorneys and resources for disaster legal services. So this is just a brief summary of what the MSBA has been doing. As always, we encourage you to reach out to us at feedback@msba.org or to contact us directly. We would be glad to talk to you and work with you. So now I'd like to turn over to the section chair. Cynthia, are you available to pick up here?
Sure, here I am. Hopefully people can hear me. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's welcome
Yes.
all section members. First thing I want to do is a little bit of administrative, which is we need to do an election, and we will have one position open, which would be the secretary position. So please email me as soon as possible. We're running a couple weeks late on this. If you would like to be on the section council as secretary. Also, we have 3 openings for section council for next year. We've had 3 individuals who have already let me know that they don't want to continue. So please, if you're on section council now and you haven't responded to me, let me know if you want to continue next year. And if you're not, please let me know if you're ready to join us. And should be a great year next year with Deborah as the new chair next year. And so again, we're really running late on that. So let me know. The next thing I want to talk about is what's been happening in our practice and issues we're having. One thing that we seem to be having, a lot of us are having problems with the Department of State website. So I wanted to know if anyone has come up with any solutions with that or issues you're having. Oh, okay. Eva, my email address is attorneyscynthia@gmail.com. And I will, I see the message there. I will email you directly later on. So another issue is, of course, the presidential proclamation on individuals entering the U.S., even because I suspect that that's going to be renewed past the original time period. Another issue, which I think hopefully the MSBA can help us with, is what we're doing when we have to respond to USCIS requests for evidence, and we can't get information from the courts. So has anyone had any recent experience on, for example, getting marriage licenses or criminal records or divorce decrees? You can put in the comments, the chat section. I'll keep talking until somebody asks a question. One of the things I'm finding is with marriage licenses, for example, in Baltimore County, you need to write to the to the court, and they will make a determination on whether it's an emergency. And I know we all have clients who need to get married so they can get their immigration applications put together. Okay, let's see. Jasmine is saying that Anne Arundel has sent certified dispositions. That's wonderful. I've also had the experience of getting a copy of a divorce decree from Baltimore County. They told me to mail in a check, leaving the amount open and just put on the bottom not to exceed $5 or not to exceed $10. And Baltimore County was great about sending me someone's divorce decree, which I needed for a CIS response. Okay, and I see Anshu saying that PG also asked for a request. Has anybody had problems getting their clients married? Getting marriage licenses? I'm looking for a jurisdiction where I can send someone to get married. So, and as I said, Baltimore County was only looking at emergency requests, and I'm not sure how to phrase it so that they understand that it would, or whether immigration reasons would be considered an emergency reason. And okay. Washington ALA had a meeting last night with Charlie Oppenheim as far as the visa bulletin, and so there were a number of questions that he could not answer right away, but he may be able to find out for us. So if you are an ALA member, there's let me, and you need to know how to contact him, or how to send him questions. Let me know. So so please give me your questions.
Cynthia, there's a question from Sylvie that's asking about Social Security card applications. Non-immigrants have to do it in person and offices are closed. Does anyone have any information on an alternative process to get clients their initial Social Security cards?
I have not had that problem yet. I mean, obviously, they're supposed to be sent when the work card is, okay, you're talking about non-immigrants, not on the, I'm sorry. I was thinking about, like, for adjustment of status cases where the when the work card comes in, the Social Security card should be following. I don't have an answer to, does anyone else?
And I think if we don't have any responses right now, if there are people that would like to respond, you can also post in the chat and we're happy to share your perspective.
And I see Claudia posted about 4 senators sending a letter to the president to suspend all new guest worker visas for 60 days. I did see that this morning. I mean, we know that Stephen Miller is on, on his path to glory here. So I'm not sure what's going to be happening prior to November. This is a tough time to practice immigration law.
Cynthia, there's another comment. I don't know if you saw, someone wrote that they wanted to share that many courts are conducting remote uncontested hearings, and they're also doing so for the CJIS hearings in Baltimore County, Montgomery, Prince George's, Frederick, and Anne Arundel. So I wanted to share that comment.
Oh, that came from Vaughn, and she did a wonderful webinar on the CJIS cases. I don't know, was that recorded? Hopefully it is recorded. The recent webinar we did on that.
It was recorded, yes.
Okay, so anyone who would like to should be able to access that from, I guess, our section website.
Yes, it will be updated in the next week or so.
Terrific. Okay. Also, we have time to still fit in another webinar for May. So anybody who would like to present, let me know right away, because I'm sure we can put it together pretty quickly. Let's see. Okay, Eva's saying a client was granted asylum prior to even getting the first work permit and isn't able to get the social. That seems to make sense following the 765. David is asking about getting a scheduling on a divorce matter. Has MSBA put in any questions to the judges on that one?
So we have been working with the judiciary about their responses, and the local bars have been focused on communicating out that there are town halls with the administrative judges, as each jurisdiction is having slightly different procedures, and those are changing quite rapidly. And it looks like in this case that the practitioner was calling to schedule the hearing, but the court said to call back in 2 weeks. What we've been hearing and what we would continue to communicate is to keep contacting, right? Because the number of people that are working in the courthouse, that are working remotely, it's changing, and the information is also changing. So we would suggest continuing to contact them. And we do know that the judiciary has put together work groups, both in the district and circuit court, to think about reopening strategies. So we should have some more updates by May 15th about the next steps for the courts.
Okay, let's see. Pending 751 ADIT stamps. I have several clients in this position, and I've had them call the 1-800 USIS number. I was going to say useless number. And one of them was able to go in there, and they saw her for a stamp, and I don't know how she did it. I mean, I'm sorry to say, because I didn't. I think that it was really a situation of her employer was desperate to keep her and wouldn't let her continue to work, and she was in a healthcare position, and so I think she probably used the magic words of COVID-19, and I think the employer might have also gotten involved, but I haven't seen anyone else have success in calling there to get an appointment for the stamp. So let's see what else. Okay.
And I would encourage people, feel free to also speak up. You're not required to use the chat.
Right.
You know, we are providing this resource as a way for us to stay connected. And we can still chat directly.
Claudia, you said that you mentioned that that you needed to have an imminent danger of losing a job. Have you had any clients who were able to get the stamp, or anybody else out there?
This was provided the information, I believe, from Philadelphia chapter. Philly chapter was able to get information that they would get you an edit stamp if you will be losing your job if you don't get the edit stamp. So when you call the 1-800 number, you need to say that you will be let go from a job. And supposedly then they give you the appointment. So it must be like an emergency.
Okay, good. Going back to the Social Security applications, has anyone had any success in getting someone that Social Security number or card? Do you think senatorial requests would help? I don't think the...
Maybe with J1s over here in this area, quite often when we get the summer work and travel foreign students, they were told by the Social Security Agency in the past that the employers can put zeros instead of the numbers on the payroll. And then once they receive the Social Security number to switch it. So that would be in a case that they are waiting for the Social Security card. So maybe in this situation, that might work as well. Just a suggestion.
What other problems are people running into as far as either local courts or agencies? Has anyone had a problem with requests for evidence because they, have, of course, have extended the time for responding to those? Has anyone had any issues with that, with responding past the original due date on an RFE, or annoyed?
Not that I'm going to just, yesterday I received a letter from the Durham, North Carolina office. I believe now they have jurisdiction or...
They're doing a lot of our cases now. Yeah, a lot of Baltimore cases.
Some cases from position, nothing. All what it just says that they've got the case and it's under review. But what case, which case, what client, I don't know.
I'm finding a lot of cases have been sent to North Carolina, and they certainly seem to be working down there. I'm not going to say how many have been Noids, but it's been a fair number. Any suggestions when the case was interviewed in Baltimore and then sent, a marriage case was interviewed in Baltimore and then sent to North Carolina for, and they send out the Noid? Any ideas on responding? Because my experience has been, I feel as though if the interview was in Baltimore, that Baltimore should be the one sending out the Noid or the intent, or rather, well, hopefully not a denial, because they weren't, you know, I don't know if they're sending the videos down there of the interview, but there seemed to be a lot of unusual Noids coming out of the North Carolina office.
I would imagine that some of this might be an issue because some clients are reporting back to me after interviews that although they bring a huge package with them of the bona fides, of the evidence to the interview to Baltimore, the officer says, no, I don't need it. That's enough. So that's what I think could be an issue. That over here in Baltimore, the officer says, I've got everything. And then they send the case for review over there, and there the officer opens it up. Well, why did Bobby from Baltimore wanted to approve this? I don't see everything in the file, right? So maybe we need to tell the clients to seriously push the evidence at the officer to keep it in a file, for this reason, to prevent this in the future, maybe. I don't know.
I think if you're sending, my personal practice is my clients know that once they hire me, I am going to the interview with you. Now, I know plenty of people don't do that. They just do the paperwork. But in this time, because of what Claudia has just represented, and this has happened before the pandemic, our clients are meek. And so when you tell them to submit the evidence, they're only going to do what the officer tells them. They don't want to be on the wrong side of the officer. And I know, as an attorney who's sat in these interviews, that even when I tell them I would like to submit additional evidence, they're like, oh, it's not necessary. And I'm like, no, we're being recorded. And I'm making a point that I want to submit additional evidence. So this may be the time where we insist or recommend to our clients that you do need representation, because things like this, shenanigans, are going on. I know it's an extra expense, but it's well worth it than having to try to, and I explain to them that way, that you understand that without my representation, I won't know what's going on. These recordings, for the most part, will be deleted after 3 days. And if you have a noise that I have to respond to, that's just a heck of a lot more money. So that's the risk you take.
Are other people seeing a lot more noise coming out of the North Carolina office where Baltimore has been sending these files? Or is it just me?
Not yet. I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I haven't either. This was the first letter that I received yesterday from Carolinas, and I was thinking about you. Because you mentioned the interview was completed, they don't need anything, but they have not written down the name of the client or the case number. So I don't know which client it is or which file it is.
That's funny. Yeah. Has anybody gotten back any of their H-1Bs approved yet, or any issues with the H-1Bs that? Just wondering. Okay. So what other problems are people having then?
Cynthia? Hi,
Yes.
Sylvie. I am wondering what you and the group are seeing in terms of being able to fill that new, hugely horrifying form, the I-944. I have not had the pleasure of filling one out yet, but I am going to this coming week. So any help would be appreciated.
That would be a question for happy hour, not a coffee talk.
Oh, right. Wait, no, I have cognac back there. I could bring it over.
I think the 944 has been the bane of our existence. It has been problematic because I have listened to several webinars on it. I'm reading comments on every listserv I think that exists. The cool immigration lawyers, the nerdy immigration lawyers, the Amigas, the DC chapter. I mean, has anyone had a case rejected because the 944 was not filled out correctly?
Not yet, but I read on the message boards that supposedly people didn't provide the credit report because the person doesn't have any credit and they rejected it. So make sure you provide some kind of declaration that you don't have a credit report because you don't have a credit score. Supposedly that helps. Then they received it. But I'm in a process of filing a couple of them, so I'll see.
Yeah, I have filed a few. I've had them do a declaration, that states that they don't have a social security number and they don't have a credit report. I've read on some of the listservs that if you try to get the credit report and you don't put in the social security number, or I know if you don't have a social security number, it will come back with the screen that just says that they can't process it. So I've also printed out that page. I know someone else has suggested just putting in all zeros. I haven't tried that yet. Are individuals getting credit reports for both the petitioner and the beneficiary and everyone else in the household, or declarations in that regard? Because I think it's very confusing.
I am reading it as that you're supposed to provide assets for everybody in a household if you're going to be using them for the support of the immigrant, right? But the liability should be only of the applicant, right? Liabilities, bankruptcy, credit report, the educational and the health insurance. So the liability is only of the applicant. I've been asking this on several message boards, but I didn't get any definite answer. I guess people don't have the answer yet. I don't know.
Cynthia, there are a few comments. Anshu just wrote just beneficiary on this topic. There are also two other questions above that whenever you have a chance.
Okay, let me just see. Okay.
We have a question from David and Viviana.
Okay, David. Students on OPT that would expire soon and can't travel back. I am filing extensions of stay for them. And
can you just read the question for people that aren't viewing the chat?
Sure. For students on OPT that would expire soon or other non-immigrants whose stay would expire soon, end of May or June, and cannot travel back to home country due to COVID-19, what are you doing to ensure that they do not violate their immigration status? Question mark, extension of stay. I've had a couple of these, and I was filing for an extension of stay for them. I was filing to change them to the visitor status because, and if somebody has a better idea, I would like to hear that, because I'm not trusting that there's going to be any kind of forgiveness otherwise. So anyone have any comments on David's question?
No, other than to say that I've had a couple of people come in and ask for an extension of stay, and because the I-944 is such a pain in the butt, and until we figure out exactly what they want or need, or I would suggest when you do your consultation, you look to see whether or not they have other options that would exempt them from the I-944. And hence make sure that if you are going to file the extension of stay, look at those exemptions first. For example, SIJ, UT, VAWA, etc.
Thank you, Vaughn. That's a good point. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go on to Viviana's question. Since biometric appointments are currently suspended, I was wondering what is happening with work permits that are being filed for the first time. I know that old biometrics are being used for renewals of EADs, but are wondering if there have been any workarounds for initial applications. I actually submitted this as a question to Ayla, and I haven't heard back yet. Does anybody have anything to say on that question? Because I also have clients in that position where there's they can't have the biometrics taken.
Sorry, don't know, Cynthia.
I think this is one of those questions that, I'm sorry to keep referring to Ayla, but a lot of us are members of both, and that's where I did submit that question, since they have the liaisons there.
Just a question for everyone on has anybody started seeing interview waivers come back now that the local offices are closed? Like, for example, for either the EB2 or 1 categories or for immediate relatives?
I am. I have had 3 interview waivers granted for employment-based cases, and in each of those cases, they came back with requests for the medicals or new medicals, and they've all come out of Durham, North Carolina. They were all Baltimore cases that were sent down there. So hopefully they will continue to do interview waiver cases for employment cases. I also had an interview waiver for a parent case, which I thought was great. And in my particular case, it was particularly good for other reasons. So, anyone else seeing interview waiver cases? Claudia, you had?
No, maybe it's going to be the one that I received. Who knows? I'll see if I get a green card in the mail, right?
That's true.
Right. Right.
Anybody have any problems with sending copies of signatures on forms? I was just wondering. I've had several. I've filed several cases where I sent in the forms with the electronic signatures. I was just wondering if you could do that on the credit card form, for paying USCIS fees.
I'd have that done.
I was checking that out this morning. There's nothing specifically that says yes or no on that.
Haven't tried.
Is anyone experiencing a greater than normal number of rejected cases for any reason?
Cynthia, it's Sylvie here, not rejected cases, but what I am seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm just trying to do a mental count right now, perfectly good birth certificates being either being rejected after they've received the case, or telling me how it doesn't meet the requirements when every single thing they list on the RFE as missing is present in the birth certificate. So I think this might be a trend, because I've spoken with a couple of the colleagues. So I don't know what everybody here is seeing that we could report to Ella as well, to see if the liaison can work on that.
I am seeing that as well. Exact situation.
Great, good to know. Then maybe we should put together a report and report it to Ella, because it's my practice is extremely small, and to get 4 cases in the past 6 months that say basically the same thing, when there's absolutely nothing wrong with the birth certificate according to the standards they have helpfully printed out for me, I didn't meet, it would be a good thing if we could work on that.
I've seen a lot of rejected cases for reasons where they say that the form was outdated when the form was not outdated at the time that it was submitted. Yeah. Particularly those pre-February 24th cases.
Yes, I'm seeing that as well. Like, it's a rash of them.
Yep.
Our business.
So what are you doing for that, Eva?
I am correcting them on, I'm just doing what they're asking me to do. Putting it away, supposedly, the form it should have been. I was almost, I was going back, and we utilize DocketWise, and many of them were DocketWise cases, that we'd processed through there. And, I was about to give DocketWise a wrath. But no, you're exactly right. They were right. And this is just left and right. I feel like trying to bury me in that.
Yeah, I mean, you do the usual where you put the, the bright pink paper on the top that says send to supervisor, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I had a librarian adjustment case returned 3 times, and I was getting very paranoid. I even sent it over to a couple other attorneys, like Eddie Newfill and Patricia Minikin, who do a lot of those. I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? And they kept saying, you filed, everything's completely right. And finally they took it the 4th time I filed it. So I'm not sure if they're having a lot of new contract employees at the service centers, or what's going on there. But I think this is a problem that we're all facing.
Yeah, I have a great concern with one particular one where it's an I-360 for a SIDGE, and the child has aged out since the filing of the I-360, and they've come back at me saying that that the category, the requested category was not checked in Part 2, and even the copy they sent back to me, it's checked biggest day, special immigrant juvenile. And so, I was trying to figure out my best approach to that.
Okay, I also see that you noted on there you're having a problem with the Vermont Service Center, saying that they sent a receipt or RFE and have never received it, and in one case even denial, saying they didn't respond to an RFE that they never received. Yes, I've run into that in the past, but not too recently. Anybody else having that issue?
My last Vermont service case, it's a U visa. I just sent back the RFE, and it was for copies of the passport, which my original copy of the commission shows every last passport, every last page. But yet I got this, you failed to submit copies of the passport. And the second item on that RFE from Vermont was you also failed to submit a self-affidavit from the applicant about their having had the 3 years in use status that qualify them for adjustment, which, by the way, it's on the very first page of the affidavit from the client that says, I have spent 3 years in use status and I'm now applying for adjustment. So I don't know what's going on there either.
Next thing I'd like to ask about is whether, obviously, they're not doing non-detained cases in the immigration court, but detained cases are still ongoing. If they open up how do you feel about their reopening up the immigration courts, and what are your any experiences that you've had in trying to get continuances with the court, particularly the Baltimore EOR?
I don't know about that yet, Cynthia, but I'd like to know when my email filing is going to be confirmed as received. I mean, that whole email process, which was wonderful, I think, wonderful for everybody's safety. But I've asked the question twice in 2 different forums and still get the same scripted answer. You will receive you should receive a receipt, but only if it's rejected is what it sounds like. And so far, I believe Naima did receive a rejection in a week. I know they've looked at it because all my emails are sent out with a tracker, and so far so good, no denial. So I'm hoping that it complies, and that means that it's been accepted. But it's been like 3 weeks, and who knows? And then after that, now we have the can't submit additional evidence until at least 3 months before your actual hearing. But on the good news, the good side, the positive note, at least ICE is accepting pretty quickly. I submit stuff and I get a confirmation within a day or 2. I don't know about everybody else's experience, but I also want to mention to you, Cynthia, your question about the marriage earlier. if you're really desperate and you can't get the license, you can still get a religious marriage and it's still valid, even though they may end up paying a penalty in Maryland, but it should be waived because of the whole COVID thing. But just know that a religious marriage is still valid and you're supposed to procure a license in Maryland, but if you don't, the marriage is still valid. They just may have to pay a penalty, but I've never heard of anybody actually having to pay that penalty. It's like the adultery statute, you know. You have to pay $25. But I've spoken to many, many EAs, and no one has ever brought up anybody on charges of adultery.
Okay. What kind of penalty? Who are you paying a penalty to?
It says it shall be $100.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
So it probably to the county where you should have procured your license.
Yeah, but it would be nice to find out if any courts in Maryland are more lenient in granting marriage licenses through, for example, through the mail, because it said Baltimore County was not cooperative, unless they deemed it, unless you thought it was you could convince them that it was an emergency.
Exactly. If you could convince them it was an emergency, and if I think we could have some scenarios where it could be considered an emergency, but you can try. I mean, Montgomery County is pretty good about it. Frederick, I would say even Howard County, and Howard County is making their magistrates available for questions. So, you don't have to get married in the county you reside in. They just have to make an exception for you.
Okay, I see Linda has posted that she requested a continuance in a May 27th, 2020 case with no answer. And then Eeyore said all cases through May 29th were postponed. Her issue is that they're postponing cases in 15-minute increments, but the judges require briefs to be filed 30 days in advance, so you still have to do the briefs. Okay. Any comments on that? Anshu, for ER cases that fall during the court closures, are you all still submitting supplemental evidence within 30 days of the originally scheduled date that falls during the closure? And then Linda saying 15. Absolutely, I'm still submitting. I'm still submitting evidence to the court. I'm not gonna wait. Because not that I really expect them to suddenly open with no notice, but I'd rather be prepared on that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, state courts make our immigration courts look like, the seventh level of what, because at least our state orders, the EOR has put out all these orders, standing orders, but they haven't done anything that tells us anything about deadlines. They haven't told. Right? Whereas our state orders all say everything that's pending is told for the number of days that the court's closed. That makes things pretty clear. And Baltimore or EOR has not made, and all these courts actually have, their own individual standing orders too. So if you happen to be actually practicing in Arlington, Baltimore, other courts, Philadelphia, then you really have to keep up on each site. So absolutely, you don't want to prejudice your client by saying, well, the court was closed, but your standing order is that scheduling order. So you have to file.
I mean, my experience is to just file everything at the earliest time I can do so. Is anybody holding off on filing cases for any reason? I mean, the service centers are slow and the receipt notices are coming in slowly, but want to get your cases in line. Is anyone seeing extraordinary delays in getting receipt notices?
Yeah.
CIS.
Yes, about 3 weeks for a case that should have been, smoothly received. The same thing. Oh, and by the way, before premium processing was halted, the CSC never sent me an email about having received the case. I got it in the mail 7 days later, but yeah, and they never faxed me the RFP they sent on that case either, even though premium processing had not been suspended yet. But yes, by and large, almost everything I have filed is taking 3 weeks to get the text message for receipt.
I'm finding the same thing, about 3 weeks for receipts.
Cynthia, David said yes for U visa cases, and Eva also said yes with a big exclamation point.
Exactly, see that. Okay. So what would you all say is the biggest issue we're facing as far as immigration cases right now? I know that's a loaded question.
Cynthia, in my opinion, is trying to keep people in status when they have work-dependent visas. And second would be the people whose tourist visas have expired, and also visa waiver program, because you can't extend visa waiver entry. And my colleague in Miami told me of her awful experience of getting a response from the CBP officer that said, the applicant's not obligated to go back to their home country, they can leave to any other country.
Wow. Has anyone tried to get a, what's it called, satisfactory departure?
No, I have not yet, no.
I know Anna Ziegel's been trying to get one. I don't think she's been successful yet on that. She's been posting a lot about that. Okay. Jolie, I see we're at 12:57. I don't know if we have to start cutting it down.
So I'm looking in the chat. I think we've covered a lot of really good ground today, and had a lot of good connections, and maybe didn't resolve everything, but at least getting a status from what people are doing. What I would like to add is that we would plan and hope to continue these dialogues. And if you all are open to it, we're happy to schedule another one. And as Cynthia said, we certainly have a lot of space and time to put together webinars for you, to engage any of you as panelists, to talk about your experience. And our goal really, as we're trying to do through the end of June, is get this information to as many people as we can. People are hungry for information, they're hungry for connection, and that's really what we're here to do.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. I think connection at this time, particularly at this time of isolation, is so important. And I really appreciate all of that. And I appreciate that CLEs being made available. Thank you so much. It just dawned on me that, of course, I needed to use a coupon code because I went to try to get one, and it, said it cost so much. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
It's in the chat. So Angela has posted that. If you scroll up in the chat, you'll see that. And we also have been sending emails every week, which is Learn from Home. And in that, you'll see the coupon code is there. And it also gives you a list of what's coming up and what's on demand that you can look at. So please look at that. And I know there's another comment here to say use the list, the email communication that we have. I know you all are very good at sharing information there. So please continue that. This is a very collegial group, as I can see, and we're happy to keep you connected. To join the immigration list, you can send us an email to info@msba.org, and we're happy to add you to that.
Great.
Okay, thanks everyone. Be safe and have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And join the council if you're not on the member. Send us an email, please.